So North Carolina is a great team. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They were a 1 seed for a reason. They end up losing only 7 games this season. Their 7 games this season were losses to Villanova in overtime back in November. They lost to UConn and Kentucky back in December. They lose to Georgia Tech in January, Clemson and Syracuse in February, and then in the ACC tournament to NC State on the Saturday of the ACC tournament. So they lost to Clemson, UConn, and NC State, all of which are now in the Sweet 16. So obviously some of their losses are to really good teams. Obviously the loss to Kentucky, not a bad loss. A little bit of a head scratcher on the losses to Nova, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse. So that will be something to kind of keep in mind. This team is beatable. They have won some big games as well, though. They beat Duke. They beat Tennessee. They actually beat Duke twice. They beat Tennessee. Let's see. Who else have they beaten? They did beat Clemson as well. They beat Arkansas. They beat Florida State. But when you look at the NCAA tournament teams that they played, the only NCAA tournament teams that they played and beat, I guess Virginia did end up making the NCAA tournament. They beat them. They beat Duke. And they beat Tennessee. Yeah, so that's the only teams in the NCAA tournament that they actually beat. So this is a team that is beatable, right? Absolutely, Alabama can win this game. The question is, will they? It starts, in my mind, with the rebounding battle. That is the number one key to this game. It is something that North Carolina is one of the best teams in the country. Thankfully, Alabama has played A&M, Alabama has played Florida, and Alabama has played some incredible rebounding teams in the SEC. But it will have to be a focus for this game. And it's not a one-man rebounding battle. It is an entire team rebounding battle. North Carolina ranks as 74th in offensive and 6th in defensive rebounding, right? So the battle on the offensive glass for Alabama versus defensive glass for North Carolina will be a very big one. And then obviously vice versa. Our defensive glass compared to their offensive glass. They're a much better defensive rebounding team than they are offensive, but both of them are very good. And Alabama will have to be good in this game. This will be a very fast-paced game. North Carolina grades out as the 36th fastest team in the country. For reference, Alabama grades out as the 3rd fastest team in the country. North Carolina about 16 seconds on the possession. Alabama about 14 and a half. So this is a game that's going to get up in the possessions. Fully expect it to be mid-70s or higher in the possession count for this game. There will be running and gunning. This game will get moving. This game, in my mind, comes down to Alabama's ability to defend Armando Bacot in the post and RJ Davis on the perimeter. Armando Bacot is as good of a post player as there is in this country. However, Alabama has played a schedule with some of the best post guys in the country. And if there was a schedule that prepared you to play a guy like Armando Bacot, Alabama has played it. They play Arizona, Purdue, and Creighton in 3 games in a row. Zach Edey, definitely the best post guy in the country. You play Creighton with Kalkbrenner. You play Omar Balu with Arizona. In the league, you also play against Janai Broome at Auburn. You played P.J. Hall at Clemson. You have played some of the Tolu Smith at Mississippi State. You have played some of the best post guys in this country. So if there is a team battle-tested and having played the guys that it takes to show how to defend a guy like Armando Bacot, Alabama has done it. The question is, will they do it in this game? It will be one of the most important things Alabama can do because their defensive rebounding, they have 3 guys, not just Bacot, but they have 3 guys that are grading, actually 4, that are grading out over a 20% defensive rebound rate. Armando Bacot as at 25%, Harrison Ingram 20%, Jaleel Withers 23%, and Washington at 21%. They're a phenomenal defensive rebounding team, so the glass will be as important as anything in this game. Then when you go to the perimeter, they have plenty of guys on the perimeter, but it's really headlined by three guys. There are three guys on the perimeter. R.J. Davis, he's returning from last season. Alabama played him in that 4 overtime game last season. He's returning. He is one of the best point guards in the entire country, shooting over 40% from three on almost 300 attempts, 275 attempts. Cormac Ryan, Alabama fans that pay attention to basketball may remember that name from his time at Notre Dame when he ended up lighting up Alabama 7 for 8 from three when Alabama lost as a 6 seed against number 11 or the 11 seed Notre Dame 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament. So Cormac Ryan is on this team. He is currently shooting 34% from three, more than capable to go off. Again, he shot 7 of 8 from three against Alabama last time they played. And then Harrison Ingram, which is shooting 38%. He ends up having a really big game in North Carolina's second round matchup. He goes 5 of 7 from three against against Michigan State, scoring 17 points with 7 rebounds. A little tidbit: Harrison Ingram is actually good friends with Rylan Griffin, and when North Carolina won their game on Saturday, Rylan texted him, "See you in LA." And Harrison was like, "Well, you got to win your game first." And then obviously they won, and now they get to see each other in LA. He said, no matter what, they're gonna give it all out on the court, and then they'll be brothers at the end of the day because they have each other's back. But that is something to watch. There is some connection with these guys. A lot of the high-level players obviously know each other, having played in AAU, or in their case, they're both from Dallas, so they've been around a lot of the same players, a lot of the same teams over the course of their entire career. So just as kind of a heads up on that one. But again, this is a really, really good North Carolina team. They have the ability to shoot with anybody. They have the ability to score. They have the ability to defend. This is the number one offense in the SEC for Alabama. This is the number one defense in the ACC for North Carolina. They're ranked as the 6th best defense, 16th best offense. So this is a team that absolutely has the ability to beat Alabama. North Carolina is also favored in this game by about 4.5 points. It opened at about 3.5. The betting has overwhelmingly been in North Carolina's favor. But for what it's worth, North Carolina is currently the favorite to win this game. I think that Alabama absolutely has the ability to win. I think that the injury to Latrell Wrightsell does hurt, obviously. It takes away one of your shooters. However, for me, the big difference is compared to when he went out earlier in the season, Alabama was obviously in mid-season form, had not been able to get their legs under them, and was playing a game every 3 days. Now he goes out on Sunday. Alabama has 4 days to wait until Thursday, and they have been able to get their legs under them the whole time with the SEC tournament and all of these days, so the team is not as gassed. And at the end of the day, it's win or go home. These players are not like, oh, I need to rest because we still got rest of the season coming up. No, your season is on the line. Oates talked to Feinbaum earlier today and mentioned something about like, hey, how is it different to coach during this? And he said sometimes during the season you may, use things as a learning lesson, not call a timeout, make the guys learn from it. You may do different things. But at the end of the day, this is the NCAA tournament, and a loss means you go home. So whether it means you play a guy for 40 minutes because the team has to have him, then you play a guy for 40 minutes. Mark Sears and Eros Strada very rarely came out in that Grand Canyon game because we had to have it, right? The season's over if you don't. So they can rest after the game, but you got to have it this game. Leave them in. So that is something to keep in mind. Wrightsell, I think, doesn't impact us quite as much in this game, just from the leg standpoint, and I think that was a big issue during the season. Does he impact you from an offensive perspective and even a defensive perspective? Absolutely, right? He grades out as one of the best offensive players in the country and the best players in the country, right? Statistically, he is a top 50 player in all of college basketball. So that's who you're missing, right? You're missing a key player on a good team. However, Alabama has the guys to be able to score with North Carolina, has the guys to be able to defend, right? They just did it against Grand Canyon. Granted, Grand Canyon is not North Carolina, but Grand Canyon has some athletes. Again, Ty Grant Foster starts at Kansas. When you're going up against a guy that started at Kansas and is a top recruit, this is not somebody that doesn't have the skill, right? He has the skill, he has the talent. This is the type of player you're going to go up against 1 through 5 at North Carolina. So they just have to defend like they did in that Grand Canyon game, get the offense back near where it was, and Alabama has the ability to win this game. So that's really all I have for this game. I think that Alabama, I think they do win. I think that Alabama is playing with a chip on their shoulder. This is the first time, I saw it also mentioned, for anybody that didn't realize, the last 2 Sweet 16s that Alabama made was as a 2 seed and a 1 seed. So we were the higher ranked team in that Sweet 16 matchup. This is the first Sweet 16 matchup that Nate Oates has been in where he is the lower ranked team. And I think as a part of that, because he's the lower ranked team, a lot of the public is kind of writing Alabama off. All of the public money is on North Carolina. All of the media is talking about the rematch with North Carolina and Arizona and Caleb Love, completely overlooking Alabama and Clemson. And I think that both Alabama and Clemson are going to play with a chip on their shoulder because of that. At the end of the day, they've made the Sweet 16. They've beat good teams to get here. This is not just a regular game, right? This is a lose and your season is over type game. I think that there are some guys on the team that may have not have played as well as they wanted to in the first 2 games, whether it be Grant Nelson or, Jaron Stevenson had some okay games, but maybe didn't have his best game last game. You've had some guys that, have something to prove. And who better to prove it against than one of the blue bloods of college basketball, North Carolina? So in my mind, this is a game that Alabama is going to have more of a chip on their shoulder than North Carolina will. Now, not to say that North Carolina is not going to want to try to win this game. Hubert Davis made a national championship in year 1. Last season, they don't make the tournament, but this is his second tournament run. First time makes a national championship. He's in the Sweet 16 in his 3rd year. So, obviously he's going to have these guys ready to play. But in my mind, I think Alabama has a little bit more to play for. I think that Alabama has a little bit more to prove to show that, hey, we're not just a Sweet 16 and bust team, and to show we can play with the big boys, right? Y'all wrote us off because y'all didn't think we could do it, but here we are, right? So in my mind, I think Alabama can win this game. My gut is that they do, actually. I think it's a close game, but I think that the schedule that Alabama has played this season, the close games that Alabama has played this season, prepared them for this game. Looking at North Carolina's schedule, they only played 1, 2, 3, 4. They played under 10 one-possession games the entire season. Alabama had a lot of blowouts early in the season, but down the stretch, Alabama gets down to Georgia, comes back and wins. Alabama gets down to Florida, comes back and wins. Alabama shows a fight, right? Alabama played that really tough non-conference schedule and then the really tough schedule in conference, like I talked about. Alabama has played a tougher schedule than North Carolina. And I think that this is the time when Nate Oates' schedule really shows what it has the ability to be and why he scheduled how he did. So I think Alabama wins the game. My official score prediction will be coming out in the thread